Hi, good morning. Um, it's August 15th, 2022. We're here with another episode or another session of interviews um, for the Drama Therapy in Prison Collective. Today we're here with Justin Hong. Uh, Justin is a graduate of the Cal State LA Lancaster BA in Communication Studies program. I first met Justin in 2017 as part of the second cohort there. He took a course in interpersonal communication with me. His compelling writings on various aspects of interpersonal communication and then autoethnography that he wrote for another class on his relationship with his sister were just really impactful writings that were adapted by some of the campus students into both performances and animation documentary. That I hope that during this interview we'll find a place where we can bring in clips from those recordings as well too. We connected a lot more actually during the pandemic lockdowns as well too. We were able to talk on the phone several times, and I remember even Justin being able to call in during one of the performances of his writings. Really glad to have you here, Justin, today. I would like us to basically go through very quickly again, do introductions of ourselves as well too, and then we'll start asking you some questions. So I'm Kamran Afari. I teach communication studies at Cal State LA. I've been at the Lancaster program since spring of 2017. Where two cohorts of students have graduated. We had our last big graduation ceremony in the fall of 2021, and we're now currently continuing with the third cohort of 19 students. And I'm a drama therapist as well too. So I bring in some drama therapy work into all of my classes, whether or not they're drama therapy related or not. Elizabeth?
Yes, I'm Elizabeth Malone Altit. I'm a registered drama therapist and I've been working with people impacted by incarceration for several years. I met Justin at the Lancaster prison several years ago, and we worked on a few projects together. His enthusiasm and charm and energy just stood out so much every time. And I'm so happy to be here. And I also just need you to answer when it's your turn, what you had for dinner last night, because Justin is always eating the most amazing food. I see that on his Instagram and I'm jealous. And let's see what else. Yeah, something that has always stood out about Justin was how much it seemed that theater and acting really meant to him. I know after we talked one time, he was asking about different acting books, and so he was kind of self-trained as well. And so I'm really curious to hear about any of that going on for you too.
Okay, I'll jump in. I'm Marianne Shine. I'm a drama therapist, a registered drama therapist, and also a licensed marriage family therapist. And I have my own private practice as a drama therapist. But once a week, I work at San Quentin doing Shakespeare behind bars. And I work through Marin Shakespeare Company doing their social justice program. I've been there for about 8 years now. And we do Shakespeare plays and something also called parallel plays, which is very drama therapy-esque, where we take parallel themes from Shakespeare and relate them to our own personal lives and then perform them. So I'm really excited to meet with you today, Justin. Heard great things, and I will pass this on to Lynn.
Hi, I'm Lynn Baker-Nelman. I'm also a registered drama therapist and a LMFT. I also teach social work, human services through Folsom Lake College with the PREP program, which is the Rising Scholars for the community colleges. So I'm at Mule Creek State Prison and Folsom Women's this semester. So, but really happy to be here and getting ready for the semester to start too.
Great. Thank you all so much. Justin, let's start with you introducing yourself, and if you would like to maybe talk about, briefly describe your performance work and experience while incarcerated, and the context of that work as well.
Sure. So my name is Justin Hong. I am formerly incarcerated. I'm also a graduate of Cal State LA. I'm an artist, a writer, and actor, and definitely a beneficiary of drama therapy. And yeah, if there's any questions, and I'm more than willing to answer.
Just maybe you can just talk a little bit about like the extent of your work, because I know you worked with us, you worked with Susie Tanner, you worked with
Yeah.
different performance works. So there's like, maybe you can just go through and give us a little bit about your history of different
For sure.
classes.
I remember, the first time I ever had any kind of acting experience was with my English professor at Cal State LA, where we had to perform Macbeth and like some of these plays like in this English class. And that was like the first time where I actually felt like excited and happy and like a child again, kind of at play during my entire time at prison. And so there was definitely like this new kind of excitement that I felt. And then as I, performed in those plays, I was given opportunities with Elizabeth Malone and Dr. Afari, where they wanted to create some plays with Imagine This and also A Fresh Start. And being involved in that, being able to kind of tell our stories and what we wanted to tell the world in a performance piece. It was very, healing and collaborative. And it was like the first time I got to work in a real creative ensemble that I just loved. And so with that, I also worked with Theater of Workers Project. We did more of those kind of plays where we kind of told our stories through performance pieces. And yeah, it's kind of where I fell in love with acting and how it made me feel and the joy that it brought into my life. And I remember, as Miss Malone told you, that I would ask her about books on different acting techniques. And I started getting those books sent in, started reading them myself. And I told myself during that time that if I were to ever get out, that I would pursue acting and just give it, just because it's done so much for me in there, that I wanted to give it that kind of respect and pursue it out here. And I'm actually doing that now. I'm going on auditions, and I have a manager now where I'm, talks with her all the time, and it's been great. It's been fun. It's living definitely a dream that I had once upon a time when I was inside.
I know you said you mentioned how it made you feel, and I'm trying to formulate the question, but if you could expound on that, and maybe also talk about like the uniqueness of getting that feeling from acting or from, being on stage versus maybe the other feelings that you get, being incarcerated. Like, if you could expound more on what that did for you, and then if you can remember, and it's okay just to say this doesn't apply, but like, did that feeling of, the collaboration, being on stage, whatever it was, did it take you further into your day? Do you have any memories of like after class or after rehearsal? Because you guys did a lot on your own, even when you weren't in class, which was mind blowing to me. Just because I've taught in many, many places, and it's I always say this, like that your group was the most professional, put together group of students I've ever worked with. I've been a college professor, like, a lot of different places. And so you guys were always very put together. But yeah, expounding on the feeling it gave you, did it take you further? I know for me, theater opened up a lot of doors in other areas of my life. So if you could just share more about if there's anything that rings true to you from that.
Yeah. When it came to like the theater aspect, it was it was very like a sense of like play and excitement, and it didn't, like throughout my whole time incarceration, I never felt that I could do that. Like it was a very serious and a very serious place where, you know, having fun and like that kind of joy, it didn't exist in my life at that up until that moment. And it also feeling that level of support with my group of people. Um, it was like the one place outside of prison that we can go to and feel kind of free. I remember telling someone else that, you know, I feel like I've been acting my entire life, whether it was, you know, acting like I wasn't afraid or something didn't bother me, or just always kind of having this mask on. And it was in actual theater and acting where I really felt that I could be my authentic self, even when I'm playing a different character. And so it was kind of a weird thing like that. But yeah, it was really, and also like outside of that classroom, where we would have to kind of like, you know, have that kind of protected 1 hour or 2 hours of doing what we want to. Even outside of it, it spilled out onto the yard, and like other people where, you know, we would rehearse on the yard and people would come and watch us, and it became something that I was proud of as well. Like a sense of accomplishment, like when we put on a performance and get all this like great feedback from, you know, our peers, or whether it was our professors, and they just kind of showed this level of love. It felt like in a place where you can't get much accomplished, or you don't have um like a body of work to kind of display, or like, you know, you don't really have anything to be proud of, kind of thing. Like that was a piece of art that we all created together, and like just was excited to share with the world. It was like something that was very precious to me, and I know for a lot of the guys in there too.
If I may just do a little follow-up on that, because I remember you had an ensemble, you created an ensemble together, called it the Ubuntu Ensemble at the
Yeah,
time. And what you just said was really powerful to me, that there's this anti-theatrical prejudice that people often carry, that acting is fake and it only takes place, you know, on the stage. Whereas you actually said you, through the acting process, through the creation of these roles and the masks, you became conscious of how we're constantly wearing these masks and playing these roles. And now actually you get to become more authentic as a result of awareness and consciousness of that, and how you can have some agency. So in creating the roles. And I wanted to also say that it also reminded me that you and I think your colleague Lee Gibson had also created a class together on masks of masculinity before even getting involved in all this theater work, where you were teaching that book in your workshops at the AER. And so creating workshops to be more aware of how the roles that are assigned to us, the masculine, toxic masculine roles in particular, that are assigned to us can be so dehumanizing, and how you were able to bring some of that into the prison as well too. I heard all these stories about people would come to me and say, you know, they would see that you were using drama therapy in your workshops, and they were just blown away by it. They would say, my God, you know, I had no idea that people could be so authentic and share so much, and you know, develop together as a result of doing this performance work as well too.
yeah, no, definitely. Me and Lee Gibson, we actually used to run a lot of workshops within the prison. And when we got introduced to drama therapy from you, Dr. Fari, and Ms. Malone, we realized like the power that it had, because, you know, a lot of the things that we talk about in these classes are about past traumas and requires like a very high level of like vulnerability, which some people haven't been vulnerable within that kind of prison setting ever. And to like go in here and talk about like past childhood traumas, this isn't something easy, and like most people are unwilling to do. But we use drama therapy as kind of this uh conduit of like separating ourselves from our with a safe distance. And I just remember seeing so many breakthroughs with a lot of the guys because, you know, they can talk about something that's happened to them through this role or through this kind of third party lens, and like it creates that kind of safe distance and allows them to talk about it and little by little, hopefully, come to a place where they can reach a level of vulnerability and actually talk about what's actually happened to them. And so I remember we started implementing these some of these, you know, drama therapy tools and just kind of like we did a lot of role play in our classes. Like after that, like every class that we did seemed like an acting class or some theater class. Like it was fun. We had a great time, but um that's one thing that I really did realize with drama therapy was, you know, it kind of gave us that agency again. It wasn't somebody forcing us to talk about what we didn't want to talk about, but we got to kind of write our scripts and, you know, tailor our story in a way where we felt safe to share with other people. And little by little, people were willing to open up more and talk about it more. And that's, I saw the power of drama therapy within those classes, like firsthand, and it was just really incredible. It's helped me personally too. Like I remember, you know, the first time I got denied at my parole hearing, you know, it was very, it was like a crushing blow. Like I really felt like I did the work. I was, you know, believe that that moment that I was changed and I wanted to go home and be with my family again. And, you know, like I said, I was a mentor to a lot of these guys in there. And so I felt like I let a lot of people down by not getting released at that moment. And, you know, I still had to kind of put on this mask of like being strong for everybody. And like, you know, people will be like, oh, what happened? Like, you know, I just try to be, you know, I couldn't really express my feelings, how I truly felt, because I still had to kind of play my role as a mentor and someone who's, you know, I couldn't show my anger or frustration outwardly. And, but I remember there was a class, I forget which class it was, um, but it gave us an opportunity to kind of talk about something like a important moment in our life and put it through a performance. And I remember wanting to write about that denial. And I wrote and, you know, just kind of played the part where I was able to scream and yell in that classroom and really express how I truly felt in this performative piece. And it was really the first time I could actually do that. Um, and it was healing. It was, you know, it's like I remember crying, and it was like the first time I really got to grieve about it too. And I remember at the end of it all, like I can do that because I felt like safe, that it was still like in this controlled environment of like this kind of performative piece. And so just the act of acting, I've really experienced the healing power of that too.
3, 2, 1. Justin Hong. Being reasonable about unreasonable decisions. More recently, I was denied release at my parole hearing. As I sat in the board hearing room, head down, listening to the commissioners read their decision, I felt overwhelmed with emotion. I was nervous, excited, and in an odd balance of pleasant and unpleasant feelings. However, when they read that they believed that I still posed an unreasonable risk to society, it felt like my whole world was collapsing around me. Everything I had hoped to do, being with my family, finally being free after 12 years, had suddenly come to a heart-wrenching halt. Grief and sadness, grief and sadness hit me like a Mack truck as I thought about my family and the devastation they would feel. The thought of being away from them for another 2 years, possibly more, I felt helpless and in utter shock. I remember the first few nights after the denial. I would wake up in the middle of the night crying. It was like my body was grieving before my mind could finally process what had happened. It was a strange experience. The day after my denial, I also felt shame and embarrassment, feeling like I let down a lot of people. I felt like a failure. Intellectually, I know this isn't true. However, it was still hard not to feel that way. There were also moments of frustration and anger, feeling like the decision was not fair, in the sense that I know in the heart was not fair, in the sense that I know in my heart of hearts that I am not the person I once was. However, I also understand their concerns, and despite that decision, I have decided that their denial was a judgment of who I was rather than who I am today. The most encouraging and uplifting part of this whole experience was the support and the role the people in my life played during this hardship. My mentors, friends, and family were very affirming and helped me find peace and strength in my circumstances. While I still face bouts of sadness from time to time, there are many more moments of happiness and love that I experience through the moments I share with the people around me. Hello?
Yes, so great to meet you and hear your journey. As a drama therapist, I'm curious, Justin, how you are currently. So when you were inside, it sounded like these classes and the people that you gathered together, that you mentored, or even that you were supported by through the art, was you were sort of, as we call, held by them, held by the class, held by these people. How are you held now that you're out?
Well, since that's a very good question because inside there, I had a group of guys that I've known for years and like developed this sense of trust and family where I was supported by them. And, I come out and yes, I have a family and friends out here too, but it's a little bit different from the guys inside. Not like even my own mother and sister couldn't understand some of the things that I was going through because they didn't actually have that same experience. And so I remember at times even being surrounded by family and friends, I didn't feel supported or like I didn't feel like people understood what I was going through. And but fortunately there are still a group of guys who are also released, and keeping them around as far as like my support system, like whenever something's going on. Like I just talked to Lee a couple days ago. I was telling you yesterday I had dinner with Alan Burnett. Like these are all guys that I did time with. So there is still very much a support system for me out here. But I've also created a new support system of actors and new actor friends that may not have the same experience as me, like the past experience, but we all have like this like common goal of acting and share this passion for it. And so, I'm continuing my therapy sessions in a sense. I'm still writing and talking. I just talked with a director 2 days ago, and we were talking about putting together a script and talking about an Asian American man getting out of prison off a life sentence. And so like just having those conversations have been like I felt so there's plenty of support. Like even now, as we're here talking together, I feel like this is something where I feel supported. And yeah, it's been great.
I have more questions, but Lynn, do you have a question also?
I think you just answered it, Justin. I was curious about like your work now and what you're continuing to do. So I'd love to hear about your writing and all that. You touched on that. So if there's anything more you wanted to expand upon, otherwise Cameron can ask a question.
Yeah, like this my story is definitely something I want to tell and share with the world, but it's also a scary thing because it doesn't just impact me, but like so many other people You know, like I might be like when I write, it might be about through my lens, but there's so many other people impacted by my past decisions. And so it's always kind of I have to take that into consideration into my writings or any kind of projects that I get into. But um it is definitely a story I want to tell, and and I feel like it hasn't necessarily been told um yet. And so yeah, um I'm always like trying to find new projects and opportunities to write and perform and those kind of things.
That's
One thing
great. I think you're like incorporating what Marianne was saying about being held. Like you're paying that forward by like almost holding others while you're doing that work. So that's great. Thank you.
that actually this reminds me of is the work that you've already done. You wrote an autoethnography at some point for, I think it was Professor Cook Jackson's class on autoethnography. And it was about, you chose to use letters between yourself and your sister Elaine over a period of a decade while you were in prison, about maintaining your relationship together, and about the difficulties, the challenges of what it's like to be in prison and at the same time continue your family relationships, continue a sense of understanding. And there was very honest telling of the story. It had its ups and downs as well too. And I know that that was tremendously moving for some of the graduate students that were reading your material, your autoethnography, and they decided to adapt it into a short performance as well too.
The following is the rest of my sister's letter that beautifully sums up our relationship.
Maybe life isn't all that unfair. I mean, after all, I still have you. And you still have me. I love you, brother. And I hope that somewhere, sometime in life, we will be reunited. Until then, all my love. Elaine.
Till then, sis. Till then. I love you.
Now, there's this also story that I wanted to share about how when we were performing that on Zoom in the spring of 2020, that Elaine, your sister, was also invited to attend the performance. And in the middle of the performance, she said, "Oh, Justin's just called in." And so I think she put you on and you were able to hear the
Yeah,
performance
I
as it was
was.
happening. And so you want to talk about that a little bit and also talk about the piece as well. So it would be great to hear that.
Yeah, me and my little sister, we it was very important for me to kind of address that, and that piece of writing was kind of my way of accepting responsibility for the choices that I made in a more deeper and meaningful way that I can share, not with only my sister but for other people. It was more to me to say I'm sorry to my sister, but to explain um in a piece of writing where I've really wanted her to understand how I truly felt and how sorry I really was. And um I remember when you guys were putting together that performance, I call my sister every day, during that moment, whenever I got a chance, I would try to talk to her. And it was just perfect timing, I guess, when I went in there and I can hear in the background my words being spoken by somebody else. And it was very moving for me, but just almost it was a strange experience. Like the words of my own vulnerabilities and regrets being performed by somebody else. And uh, even that time, I think I felt like if I were to have read that, I think it would have been much harder. But then to hear it from somebody else, it gave that kind of sense of safety too. And with my sister today, still like, we still talk about it. I have a very close relationship with my sister now out here, but yeah, it's being separated from any family member, let alone a sister, where I feel like this tremendous responsibility to be a good older brother and not being able to do that. It was still is one of my biggest regrets. And um, yeah.
I have a question, kind of about being in the acting industry now. A lot of us have been in the industry at some point, and it's really tough. I mean, there's a lot of rejection, there's a lot of confusion. The LA culture can be kind of tough in terms of like, you think you're getting somewhere and then people might just drop off the face of the earth. Or, I lived in New York for 9 years, so it was a little different. And I guess my question is, having spent so much time with so much restriction on you and so much oppression, and also having to face yourself so clearly and kind of sit with yourself for so long, and then coming out, falling in love with acting, coming out and pursuing this. How do you feel like, being incarcerated has affected your sense of drive, motivation, purpose within an industry that can be really cutthroat and judgmental? But also within that, the actual actors and the process can be very open and wonderful and exciting and joyful. And then it's a really kind of roller coaster industry. Yeah, can you speak to that at all, just based on, where you come from, where you are?
Yeah, it's definitely like a lot of highs and lows, more highs than lows, I think, for me at this point. I've made some active friends and they've been in the industry for, you know, a lot of years, and some of them are jaded and some of them are kind of, but at this point in my life, I'm still very much excited and like going on auditions, like just I've doesn't even matter if I ever get a role or not. Like just the process of that, it just brings me so much joy. And yeah, there has been like and like facing rejection or anything like that. I think coming from prison, being rejected in the most, like essentially when I got found guilty, it was just a rejection of, who I was, and a rejection from society to be cast away into a prison. Having gone through all those things and learning new coping mechanisms within that system to kind of deal with it, it's really helped me as I've come out here. And like it's kind of become a mantra in my own mind where like whenever I'm having like a difficult situation, or where I might feel this like a certain way, I just kind of tell myself like everything I've been through already, like this is nothing. Like this is something I can deal with. Like, like this 5 years ago was way more harder for me then than it was like any kind of, situation that I've come across today. And there has been difficult situations, but I think my past has, I've been able to build up a resilience and the tools to kind of deal with that as life, um, as life comes at me. And so uh, every day we just kind of roll with the punches, deal with it in healthy ways and become stronger for it. There's nothing much different that I'm doing out here now than I was doing over there. I've faced plenty of rejection, heartache, and so just kind of doing it now still.
Yeah, when I hear you say that, it reminds me a lot of like, Cameron and I have worked a lot in narrative practices, narrative therapy, narradrama, and just this idea that you take the past and you try to, you look at it through the lens of, how can it serve my future? versus keeping you down. And it's not like you're putting on rose-colored glasses. You're really just trying to pull out like the strengths and the resilience. And what I love is that you've done that, because all of us can fall into the trap of allowing it to kind of, maybe speak to who we are. Like, I've been so rejected, I'm probably going to get rejected again, right? Or kind of like fuel us into this belief system about ourselves. But what it seems like you've done is, I've suffered the worst rejection. This is nothing, right? And to me, that's what you've done, because it is easy to also say, well, I already, I'm just rejected, right? Like labeling ourselves. So yeah, I selfishly wanted to hear that from you, because I get a lot of inspiration from that myself, and just a great reminder of our past and what we've been through can fuel us to make brave decisions in the future versus keep us from making brave decisions,
Yeah.
right?
Absolutely. And I think like I've been watching a lot of interviews with actors and talking to my other actor friends, and I feel like a rejection from a role or something like that, because I've been on a bunch of auditions, I haven't booked a single thing yet, but every time I walk away from it, not as a way of like a rejection of my talent, or like maybe I'm just not the right person for them, and so I try not to make it like a condemnation of who I am, like just like really putting myself down about it, but it's just like, man, I wasn't right fit for them this time, but maybe next time. And so I don't know, just kind of having that kind of uh perspective has definitely changed. And that perspective is not something that I was able to just like switch one lens to another and see the world that way. It took a lot of time for me to gain a sense of who I am. And when I show that to somebody and they don't accept it, it doesn't take away from who I am at all. And so like having to come to terms of that, like it's become a lot more easier to face those kind of um rejections of people who really don't know who I am at all. So to me, it doesn't really affect me as much. I'll let you know if I really want to roll and they reject me then, and see how I feel about that. But like, yeah, I think coming from prison, we have like, and especially like what we need to do in order to get out of prison through the parole process, we have to have a strong um, sense of who we are, because they're looking at a book of writings and records of just like what we've done in the past, and it's very abstract, it's very you know cold and clinical with all their psychological reports. But walking into any of those board hearings, we have to have a strong sense of who we are, and they have to see that more than just the writings on the paper. And so um, it's almost the same thing now. I'm going for roles where it says, hey, I need an 18 to 31-year-old East Asian male or whatever. Like, these are just just standards of what they might want. But every time I do a self-tape or something, I want to show them who I am. And so more than just what they're these little criteria that they might have to fit. And so that's also helped me in pursuing acting now too. um, every time I see something that my manager sends me and I see kind of like this checklist of what I need to fit into, um, I try not to fit into that, but like just to be myself. And yeah, I mean, it still makes it an enjoyable experience. So
Yeah. This conversation reminds me also that when we talk about learning critical communication skills, we always think about as if it's communication takes place only with others, but really it's communication with ourselves, intrapersonal communication, the way we talk to ourselves, the way we frame things, the way we reauthor our life stories. And that comes, I mean, we learn a great deal from doing performances and the narrative exercises when we do that as well too. If you were to do a PSA, a public service announcement, for why we need to have more performance in carceral settings. What would be some of the things that you would say? What are some of the reasons, compelling reasons why we should have these programs more available to people?
Well, it's in particular with drama therapy, I feel there hasn't been a program. I've done pretty much every program in prison. And drama therapy to me has been the most significant in like kind of resolving our past traumas, the things that we don't want to look at the most. There's a lot of programs where we learn like soft skills, hard skills that can aid us in like, in our careers and like financially making money, once we get out. And there are programs that, require us to go deep and like resolve our own traumas, but drama therapy has been most significant for me because of those things that I've said before, that it creates like this safe environment to kind of talk about those things and yet create a safe distance between us and that trauma, because sometimes that trauma is going to be too much for just somebody to talk about if they're not ready yet. And so this gives like a nice little like access into those things at our with our choice. Like we can kind of have the agency to kind of unpack it in our own timing, in our own like on our own terms. And so drama therapy does that for me. And it also creates like this level of, like I said, enjoyment and like joy that is lacking in there. I remember just going into some classes where we're just sitting down in a circle talking about, all these past things that's just really depressive and sad. But, in the drama therapy classes, there's a lot of laughter and a lot of, physical movement where we can kind of, be kids again. And I think even the most hardened guy and deep inside at heart can benefit and maybe want to be that kid again, that, that innocent kid before all the things that led us to prison. Yeah.
Thank you so much. I just said, we're now working with the third cohort. And so I've learned a great deal from working with you in the previous cohorts as well, too. And we just had on Friday, we had our last class, the performances. Everybody put together these beautiful performances of civic engagement, telling stories about their childhood, putting on a mock mayoral debates with little red bow ties and their iPhones, handmade little mock iPhones. And it was hilarious. It was fun. It was joyful, but very serious stuff about voting rights, school shootings, just growing up, struggling for civil rights as well too. So I just reminded me that, thanks to you and thanks to all the work that the previous cohorts did, we now have more of a clarity about how to do more of this work as well with the new cohort. And they're really very quickly picking up. There's one person in there also who has a theater background, who actually works with Del Arte Theater. So he was able very quickly to bring in warm-up exercises and really help the others as well.
He's someone who's incarcerated.
Who's incarcerated? His
Theater background. Wow.
Yes. He's actually cellmates with Dara, and so they have a workshop, and they're using the manual that you guys put together for drama therapy. So they're using some of that manual as well too. Yeah. So that's still living and continuing.
Yeah. No, it's so great to hear, because like me and Lee and Alan, a lot of us, we put a lot of time into creating these things in hopes that it can be used like in this like era that it's still being used and stuff. That like really makes me happy, because I'm still in touch with a few guys, but in real short 15-minute phone calls, we kind of miss those things. And so to be hearing from you and seeing that you guys can actually witness that still, because you guys are still going in, that's really cool.
Was there something in your transition phase after being released and where you are now that you found really useful and helpful in your artistic expression and helping you transition? Or do you wish that there was something like a drama therapy class or a group that you could have had to help it be smoother?
Definitely, I think a drama therapy class out here, because once we're released, we are required to take like several classes. But then again, I've taken them when I was out, and they weren't as they were like pretty cookie cutter and just kind of like, you run through the thing, like this is just what we have to do. And so I wish there was a more meaningful program that can kind of help us reacclimate back into society. Maybe that's something that we can talk about too, Dr. Fari, later on. Because I remember even all this inner work that I did inside, coming out here, it was a new set of struggles, like with technology, relationships, things I wanted to, like conversations that I wanted to have, but wasn't sure how to have it. I feel like drama therapy or acting could have played a role in that, and make it a little bit easier. And so thinking about that now, I feel like maybe in the same way that it helped me inside, it could have helped me out in those in those new obstacles that I was facing. They didn't have that available for me, like a program. But yeah, I mean, there was opportunities to act. I remember I did a workshop with the Actors Gang. And so like there was other things, but they didn't necessarily talk about like the struggles that we were, facing. It was just kind of like an opportunity to play and have fun and act, which was still fun. But I definitely think there could be a larger therapy aspect of it than just the drama aspect of it.
I think it would be awesome. Yes, especially with your experience and your ideas to collaborate together on developing something that would be drama therapy, that would be acting, role play, performances, but specifically dealing with relationships, with technology, with the post-release challenges that come up.
Yeah, definitely. Because that was something that we weren't necessarily prepared for. Inside, we've dealt so much with what just this immediate environment of prison. And people would tell us all these things about getting out, but you don't really experience it, like the struggles, until you actually experience it yourself. People told me a bunch of times that this is going to be hard, this is going to be hard, but throughout that, like you don't really know how hard it actually is or how you're going to deal with it once it comes at you that way. So I definitely think better programs, because like I said, we're required to do it anyway. Like when we get out, we have to do certain programs and stuff, but it just seemed like we were just going through the phases, like we're just doing it because we had to, because our parole officer told us that we did, but it didn't necessarily benefit me in any way. It didn't address any of the struggles I was going through. It was just kind of, I don't know. But I definitely think if it's a requirement that we have to already do, that there can be better programs that can actually, make use of that time and resource in a much more impactful and significant way.
Thank you so much, Justin. I agree, and I really think that the group of us here today, but also, the guys who have come on in the last couple of years, they can also be part of this too, this continuing conversation about what are some specific issues that we can address, how we can actually just take even some of your own stories and record them and, play them back, or, make them as part of this process of doing various experiential exercises together. So yeah, let's definitely continue with that. So maybe we'll invite you back again, not necessarily just to record an interview, but to try to hash out some of the ideas for something like that, a workshop as well.
Yeah, if we can try to get like some kind of like I don't know how, I know Alan and some of us have talked about it in the past, but like starting an actual program out here, because we started a bunch of programs in there and we know exactly how to do that. But out here it's much different with funding and all these different things. Like, we would need your help on that part. But I mean, I think a lot of the guys in there and the people like yourselves that's been helping us as free people, like coming together, like we can definitely do something.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Thank-
And it
thanks.
would be so cool. Like, hey, we all started in there together at the same
Yeah.
time. It's definitely a thought, a conversations that I've already had with like a couple of the guys in there. Like, what can we do out here? Like, but it just seems uh like there's such a big learning curve when it comes to that. Like funding and like we have no idea like when it comes to these things. So
Justin, I just want to say it's so good to see you. I'm so impressed by all that you're doing, and just to encourage you that I'm sure your story is complicated and vulnerable, and anyone who puts out that type of story into the world, there's going to be a lot that um, that comes from that. But if you stay true to what you know is true to you, like, you're going to weather that storm that could, come. And I want to hear it. I want to, if you need any, like, just read this, let me know what you think. I'd love to, yeah, just be a resource for you as well. But even when you didn't know that there were people thinking about you when you were inside, like, Cameron was always updating me. I was like, how's Justin? How's Justin? And so just, you have more support than you even know. And yeah, we're here for you.
thank you so
Um,
much.
Really proud of you.
Thank
Cheesy to say, but very proud of
you.
you.
Thank you.